Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Book Nook. I'm joined again by Aamna Qureshi. I first interviewed her when she released The Lady or the Lion, the first book in her Marghazar Trials duology. And now I'm fortunate enough to get to sit and chat with her about the conclusion to this amazing love story, or rival story, depending on how you look at it. Welcome, Aamna. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to talk about The Man or the Monster.
Oh, and then can we hold that up again? Look at how beautiful that cover is. Oh, it's just stunning. And Amna, remind me the artist of the cover artwork.
So the artist is a Pakistani painter. His name is Asrar Faruqi. He's on Instagram, and I've always loved his work. So when I needed the covers for my novels, I was like, I know the exact person to contact.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's stunning. Looks really good on my bookshelf. So could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Amna?
Yes, so I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Aamna Qureshi. I'm the author of The Lady or the Lion, which came out last July. And the sequel, The Man or the Monster, is coming out this July, July 26th. And they're young adult historical fantasy stories set in a Pakistan-inspired world, which pulls from my own Pakistani roots. And I had so much fun, bringing my own culture into my stories. I also have a contemporary novel out next year called When a Brown Girl Flees, out with Lee and Low in the spring. And other than writing, of course, I love reading. I love baking. I love going for walks and enjoying nature and just spending time with family and loved ones.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I think I mentioned in our last interview, I think my favorite part about your novels is just how beautifully you describe the food. Like, I always get so hungry reading your books.
Thank you.
And can you tell us a little bit more about The Man or the Monster?
Yes, so The Man or the Monster picks up right where The Lady or the Lion finishes. If you haven't read The Lady or the Lion yet, you should get on that. It has a bit of a cliffhanger at the end. So The Man or the Monster picks up right where the first book finishes and basically follows our main character. They're kind of grappling with the decision that she made at the end of The Lady or the Lion and sort of the consequences of that decision.
Oh, and consequences abound. It is quite a heart ripper. I would recommend having some tissues nearby while you're reading it. And concluding a series is such a huge undertaking. What did you find was the hardest part about that process?
So it definitely is a huge undertaking. I think the hardest part was trying to have the ending of the sequel be satisfying, but not too easy. I still wanted the characters to sort of earn their ending. And another really important thing for me was to mimic the spirit of the first book, which of course mimics the spirit of the original short story, The Lady or the Tiger by Frank R. Stockton. And The Lady or the Tiger, the short story, actually has a sequel story as well, which I didn't know when I originally wrote The Lady or the Lion. But when I was writing the sequel, I was looking into it more. So I read the sequel story. My sequel, of course, doesn't follow it, but I think the ending of The Man or the Monster has a bit of the spirit of the sequel short story in it as well.
Yes, I have to read that sequel short story now as well, because I won't say anything to avoid spoilers, but I loved how you ended The Man or the Monster. And I loved that you really did capture the spirit of the original while also putting your own flavor to it, which is really lovely. So what was the easiest part about finishing your series, or what part did you enjoy the most?
So I think for me, the easiest parts to write are always the romance scenes. But in this book, it was actually a little difficult just because of the circumstances the characters were in. There was so much else going on. It was sort of hard to squeeze in those romance scenes between, very intense political and family drama. But when I was able to get those scenes in, that was definitely really enjoyable and fun for me. I also really enjoyed the scenes with all of the young characters together, writing in some banter and switching the tone from, the more serious tone to something a little with a bit more humor, despite the majority of the book being very intense. Because of course the characters are 17, 18, 19. So there's still a bit of that chaotic energy in there.
Yeah, actually, there is a definite sense of, that song, Lovers in a Dangerous Time?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's really kind of like that where you just want to give them a weekend away. Like all the politics can just wait for a weekend. All of the squabbles between families can just wait. And you guys deserve some time to just love. And
And just take a little break.
exactly. Yeah. That'd be a vacation from their real
Yeah.
world. And what advice would you give to authors who are trying to tie up their own series and tie up their own loose ends?
So I would definitely say, don't get bogged down worrying about what your readers will want, and to do what feels natural and, right to you. Because at the end of the day, you need to write a story that you're happy with and that you're proud of. I know it's hard because, you already have an, established audience who've read, maybe the first or second books. So when you're closing up the series, you really want to, respect those readers, but you also don't, and you also obviously don't want to disappoint anyone. But ultimately, I think it's more important to not disappoint yourself. So yeah, I'm really happy with how my sequel turned out and how the series ended. So even if, some people don't like it, which is bound to happen because you can't make everyone happy, that's okay because I'm really happy with it and I love it.
That's probably really good advice because I can imagine, especially once the reviews start coming in, came when the reviews started coming in for The Lady or the Lion, and you're seeing everyone's kind of hot takes on it, and you're even just friends or family being like, "Oh, I hope this happens."
Yeah,
You really can't please everyone, so just please yourself. I love that.
yeah, definitely.
And so you've spent a couple years creating this beautiful world, this rich culture, this amazing kind of history, and you've got clans that clash and all of these really wonderful characters. So how does it feel to now have to put that kind of to rest? Do you think you'll return to that world in the future?
It's definitely a bittersweet feeling because, I've lived in this world for so long, writing, the first book and then sending it out and then writing the sequel. And, you're very obviously involved in the world building and creating this world and these characters. That being said, I think there is a bit of relief that, the stories are closed. And because I'm so happy with how, the sequel turned out and how it ends, for now, I feel very content and I don't have that itch of like, and there's more to tell. But at the same time, I had so much fun writing these stories, despite how challenging it was. I loved the characters and their dynamics, but I think where I leave them with the end, it's pretty conclusive. So story-wise, there's not much left to tell. But that doesn't mean the door is closed forever. I like love the concept of next generation stories where it's like kids of the main characters' stories, or also like happily ever after novellas. Not that the man or the monster necessarily has a happily ever after, not to spoil anything. But yeah, for now I'm, busy with other projects, but I definitely wouldn't rule out coming back to this world and these characters.
Oh, and what aspect do you think you'll miss the most about your world?
I think just the characters and, their relationships and the way that they interact with each other. With every new story that I write, I really try to, not do the same thing. So all the projects I've been working on right now, the dynamic isn't the same as like Durkane and Esfandiar's dynamic is in The Lady or the Lion, which I had so much fun writing. So I think I'm definitely going to miss, their banter and the way they challenge each other and just the way they interact with one another.
And I think as a reader, it was really lovely to see how their relationship did evolve. And as we mentioned before, it wasn't as rosy and wonderful all the time. And there were a lot of barriers, but it was lovely to kind of go deeper into their hearts and their minds. And you have, I think my favorite part of the sequel were the chapters that you had from Asfandiar's point of view, just because we know Durkani, we know her so well. She's almost like a best friend. And then we get this insight into this man who loves her. And he's so complex, but also their relationship is so complex. Yeah. So I guess with how close we get to both of these characters, what would you say the greatest strength is of each one? So which kind of trait did you really want readers to take home as this is their shining trait?
So for Durkane, I would say that her greatest strength is her emotions, just, the depth of how much she feels. I know a lot of times it can feel like being overly emotional is a weakness and not a strength. But through Durkane, I really wanted to show readers and even myself that, feeling deeply is something that enriches your life, not detracts from it. And, Durkane, she cares so deeply for her family and her people and her love. And that's what ultimately gives her the strength to keep pushing forward, even when things are like heartbreakingly difficult. And as for Asfandyar, I'd say that his greatest strength is his character. He has such a good heart and he's trying so hard to be good and to do the right thing. And despite all the suffering he's been through, he's still so warm and compassionate. Like he has a really good moral compass. So I think those are definitely their greatest strengths.
Wonderful. And what message are you hoping that readers take away from either their characters themselves or from their relationship?
So something that I hope readers see in Durkane is how she doesn't close her heart off, even when it hurts to feel so much. She's so brave, I think. Despite being afraid, she still pushes herself out of her comfort zone and seizes the opportunities in her life rather than just sitting idle and sort of letting life happen to her. And even when she makes the wrong decisions or does things that she later regrets, at least she's being proactive and trying. And at the end of the day, all we can do is try. And another important thing that is that she recognizes when she makes mistakes and does her best to fix them, which is also something that I hope readers see in her.
That's such a good message, because it's almost, there are a lot of books out there, and everyone has their own taste, but there are a lot of books out there where it's almost like we have this idea that our main protagonist can and should do no wrong. But that's not interesting to read. Like, I loved when Durkane would stumble, because she, first of all, she would run into a stumble. She wouldn't tiptoe. She would just headlong into a mistake. But to see her as a character deal with that, and like you said, she is emotional, so she does, not in a negative sense, but she does take things to heart, and she does feel a lot of the pain that she inflicts on others. So she would kind of run in, make a mistake, but yeah, pick herself back up. That's what we want to read. Like, we want to read kind of the phoenix rising from the ashes, not just a songbird in a cage,
Definitely.
I love that. So Durkane and Esfandiar's love is both beautiful and incredibly tragic. Where did you get your inspiration from?
So I think I'm always taking inspiration from, the media around me. I love reading romances and watching romances and listening to my friends' romance stories. And I think, sort of the media that I've always been drawn to are those types of love stories that have a hint of tragedy in them. Because I think it isn't until, tragic circumstances sort of arise that you really realize just how much you love this person, which makes it worse because then it's usually too late. But I think when, love stories have that tragic undercurrent, it really puts things into perspective for the characters and even for people in real life, and sort of helps you realize what's important and what your priorities are.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, love on the edge. It's a lovely story when everyone's happily ever after, but when you really have to kind of bite your nails and hold on tight to that love, that's a fun story too.
And then the ending, when hopefully they do end up together, it's all the more rewarding because, they've been through so much. So you're like, okay, they deserve their happy ending now.
Yeah. Again, they finally get their vacation.
They deserve a break.
Yes, yeah. And what was your favorite? I know you mentioned that you really like writing the romance scenes and the banter, but was there a specific scene that you really enjoyed writing?
So there was one scene that I really enjoyed writing, but it's a major spoiler, so I can't explain it too much. But there is this one very happy scene in the book. That was a lot of fun for me to write. It was all like very beautiful and moving to imagine and then translate onto page. But it was funny because so usually when I write, I listen to like my playlist for like the series that I made, but the playlist has very like angsty and like sad music. So when I was writing that scene, I was like, I can't listen to this. Like I need happy music. So then I had to like separately go and try to find happy songs. And then I was playing those, and then I wrote that scene. And I'm really happy with how that scene came out. Since you read it, you might know what I'm talking about. It's towards the very end of the book.
Yes, I think I know the one. And it was, yeah, it was just stunning because there was no thorns, just
Yeah.
roses.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So yeah, you've wrapped up this beautiful duology, and you've got when the brown girl flees coming out in spring next year. Are there any other projects coming up that you're spending some time with? What's next for
I
you?
have a short story that's coming out in an anthology, I think next year as well. It hasn't been announced yet, but that's something I'm also really excited about.
Oh, is it kind of around that same theme of fairy tale-esque or those short stories, or?
No, this is a contemporary, so it's like a
Oh.
cute rom-com. So different than The Lady of the Lion and When a Brown Girl Flees, which is more literary skewed.
Amazing. And where can readers find more information about you and upcoming projects?
So you can look on my website, which is aamnaqureshi.com, and you can also follow my Twitter, which is, I believe, Aamna Qureshi _, and then my Instagram, which is Aamna_Qureshi. And then everything should be linked on my website.
Perfect. And I'll put all of those links in the description below. But thank you so, so much for joining me today. I feel a great sense of like conclusion that I got to talk to you about the lady or the lion, and now about the man or the monster. So thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. And it's crazy how quickly time goes. I feel like I was just here talking with you about The Lady or the Lion.
Right. It's crazy, which we should mention. The Lady or the Lion has since won 3 awards. So it's now a medal winning book.
Thank you so much.